Before we start really into statistics, we need to go through really what are like sampling methods, ways that we do research, talk about types of data. So we're going to talk about a little bit of basic stuff that has to do with sort of research and how you do a study. So first thing we're going to start with is really sampling. So we kind of have to get a little terminology before we get there. So if you're following with the notes, we're on this first objective. So we're going to describe the investigative process of statistics. So in the months leading up to an election, polls often tell percentages of voters that prefer each candidate over the other. Polling follows a procedure that is typical in statistics. So usually in statistics, we're doing an investigation of processes that involve several steps, which is we will have a question we want to ask, we formulate a question. So in the case of polling, oops, I lost my tool here. In the case of doing like polling, the formula in the question would be, who do they prefer? And so that's kind of thing we were asking. So this is the data that we're interested in. Who is the preferred candidate? So that'd be our question. So we need to do a collection of data is needed to answer this data. So we open polling centers, or we poll people. So when we're collecting that data, we pull registered voters, meaning we ask them who they're voting for. Then we need to really describe that data. So the data might be, something such as 52%. Like we'll use a neutral party here, the Green Party candidate. So that's what we're talking about describing data is. What we do is we formulate that question, we collect data, and then we describe it somehow. So what we discovered from that data, 52% say maybe they like the Green Party candidate, and you might have more in there, like 31% like the Red Party candidate. We'll just make it a little more as neutral as I can here. Then we would draw conclusions using these appropriate methods. So there'd probably be more here, like this isn't 100%, there's more candidates. So your conclusion, my conclusion would be, I expect the Green candidate to win the election. So this is really what is the essence of statistics. We're going to make it a little more involved in this, but this is the very basics of it. Is that we have a question we need to answer, we need to collect data on it. One of the things we're going to start talking about is how we collect that data. Then we need to find ways to describe that data. So I'm using a very simple description. We're just using percentages, but mostly what we're going to be looking at is describing that data. And then we draw conclusions using that data. So I use my percentages. I've used that to kind of draw my conclusion. But like I said, this is very basic, but we'll make it a little more layered than this as we go along. So what is statistics? Statistics deals with the collection of data, organizing that data, analyzing it, and then doing an interpretation. So basically what we just lined out in the first part. We use statistics to describe data or to make predictions based on data. So we use it to like describe where we got the information from. So if I was looking at a class and I want to get your average grade, then I'm describing your average grade. I'm not making a prediction. I'm just describing on average what your grade is. Or you use it to make a prediction. So, like if I gathered information from my class and found out, like 52% of you planned on taking more math later, then I would make a prediction that would happen to all my classes. So that's what we're talking about. It's either you can use it to just describe who you're getting the information from, or you use it to make predictions for the future or for bigger groups of people. So typically we use statistics to make predictions about situations that we are going to back with by mathematics and probability. We have a lot of probability in this. So some of our basic terminology, statistics, not to be confused with a statistic, which we'll get to in a while. Statistics is the study of processes for collecting, describing, and drawing conclusions from information. So that's just another way of looking at it. Your population is the entire collection of individuals for which the information is sought. So when we were talking about about voting, the population we were interested in was registered voters. A sample is, so let me put this here, all registered voters. A sample is a subset of the population containing the individuals that are actually observed. So we want to know what all registered voters think, but we're only going to collect a sample. So, we only have some registered voters in our sample. So really what you're looking at is you always have a population, which is containing everybody, but the sample that you actually use is just a small part of it. They don't collect data, usually don't collect data on everybody. It's not really feasible. We usually look at samples. Data are measurements or observations that are collected as a source of information. So in our case, our data could have been voting for green or red. Those are two I mentioned. All right, so this is just a quick little picture, just showing you kind of the same idea here. This is your whole population. My sample's only going to be a small bit of it. So just a quick little example for something to think about. In a recent survey, 834 employees in the United States were asked if they thought their jobs were highly stressful. Of the 834 respondents, 517 said yes. We want to identify the population and we want to identify what the sample would be and then describe the data set that we have here. If you want, you could take a moment and pause and think about this on your own. Okay. So your sample here, your sample is always a part of the population you're interested in. So this was a survey of 834 employees in the United States. So my sample would be that 834 employees. And it's not just any employees in the United States. So usually you just need to make sure that you're as descriptive about the population you're looking at as possible for your sample. So where does the sample come from? Well, the sample comes from all employees in the United States. So your sample, like I said, is always a small portion of it. Your population, it's always everybody. So technically we say it's all. Usually what you'll see is you won't see a number and we'll just say, what's your population? Employees in the United States. So this all doesn't always get included in there, but it's expected that that's really what we're looking at is everyone. How would I describe the data? So what do we have here? Describe the data. We have 515 out of 834 people say that they are highly stressed. So not only is it just people, but it's employees in the United States. So we would have 517 out of 834 employees in the United States say they are highly stressed. All right, I promise not everything's going to be this straightforward. You'll have to do a little thinking eventually, but right now it's just kind of getting some of your terminology down here so we understand what we're looking for. So predominantly what we're interested in doing in this class is describing data. So another one, identify your data sets. think I forgot to say what you're identifying, but in a random check of several hundred retail stores, the Food and Drug Administration found that, sorry, 34% of stores did not store fish in the proper temperatures. So we want you, once again, tell me what that sample is. Tell me what that population is. Now you have a better idea. You might want to just pause a second, think about it, and then describe the data. So in the previous one, we talked about the sample. We had a number attached to it. We had 834 people. Usually when there is an amount attached to it, that's an indicator that that's a sample. Here we have several hundred stores. So it's not all of them, but several of them. So your sample would be several hundred retail stores. So like I guess the sample is always it's some and the population is always all. So my population, we could just say retail stores. Or if it makes you feel better, you can always say all retail stores. But when we say retail stores, it's assumed we mean all. And we want to describe the data. Description of the data is 34% of the several stores. Do not store fish properly. Okay.